So, students, today we will start dual nature of matter and radiation. So, what is the meaning of dual nature of matter and radiation? Now, if we take matter, it has the properties like mass, momentum. Similarly, the next thing is radiation or waves. They have properties like wavelength, frequency. So, in some cases, matter can behave as radiation and radiation can behave as matter. This is called dual nature of matter and radiation. Matter can behave as radiation and radiation can behave as matter. So, matter can show wave-like nature, wave can show particle-like nature. This is called dual nature of matter and radiation. Now, before that, we have to understand two things. First one is free electrons. So, generally in metals, the outermost electrons are loosely bound with the nucleus. So, these electrons can move from atom to atom but cannot move out of the atom or metal surface of its own. These electrons can move along the metal surface but cannot move out of the metal surface of its own. These electrons are called free electrons or conduction electrons. Due to a large number of free electrons, metals are good conductor of electricity. Now, the second term is work function. We have to understand this term work function. This is denoted as phi naught or W naught. So, consider this is a metal surface. Now, the minimum amount of energy required to just emit an electron out of the metal surface is called work function. The minimum amount of energy required to just remove an electron from a metal surface is called its work function. So, its SI unit is joule, but practically we measure it in eV, that is called electron volt. So, 1 electron volt equal to 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19 joule. So, 1 joule equal to 1 upon 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19 eV. That is equal to 6.25 into 10 to the power 18 eV. Next, we'll go for types of emission of electron. So, what are the methods of emission of electron from a metal surface? The first method is thermionic emission. So, in this process, the metal is heated to a high temperature. So, electrons get the thermal energy and get emitted from the metal surface. These emitted electrons are called thermoelectrons or thermions. So, the second method is field emission, or that is called cold cathode emission. In this process, the metal is placed in a high amount of electric field of the order 10 to the power 5 volt per meter or more. Now, these electrons, due to electrostatic force, get emitted in the opposite direction of applied field. This is called field emission or cold cathode emission. The third process is secondary emission. In this process, high energy particles like alpha or beta particles are bombarded on the metal surface. So these beta particles strike with the electrons. Electrons absorb their kinetic energy and get emitted from the metal surface. This is called secondary emission. The fourth one is photoelectric emission. In this process, the metal is illuminated with light of suitable higher frequency. The electrons of the metal surface absorb the energy of light and get emitted from the metal surface. This is called photoelectric emission. So, next we will go for experimental study of photoelectric effect. So, this is the experimental setup. Here, there is a vacuum tube. It has a quartz window. So, light of suitable frequency can enter through this window. Now, there are two metal plates or electrode. This plate is called cathode or emitter. So, light from this quartz window falls upon the cathode or emitter. So, the electrons in the surface of the cathode get emitted due to by absorbing the light energy of the light. Now, these electron will move towards the another electrode placed inside the vacuum tube. This is called anode or collector. So, when these photoelectrons move towards the anode, there will be a current. That current is called photoelectric current. It is measured by this microammeter. Now, a potential difference is applied with cathode to the collector. This is measured by the voltmeter. Now, there is a two-way switch. So, what is the function of this two-way switch? Just observe. Now, this point becomes positive due to positive terminal of the battery. This point becomes negative. Now, if this point is connected at this terminal and this point is connected at this terminal, then collector becomes positive with respect to cathode. Now, if this point is connected to this point and this point is connected to this, then collector becomes negative with respect to cathode. So, the two-way switch can change the polarity of potential difference between cathode and collector. Now, there is a potential divider circuit. It can change the potential difference between collector and emitter or cathode. So, this is the experimental setup. Now, we'll take some reading and draw some graphs. So, the first part is we'll measure the effect of collector potential. So, we take collector potential along x-axis and photoelectric current along y-axis. Now, when we draw the graph is like this. So, we can divide this graph in three parts. First part is when the collector potential is 0. The second part is when the collector potential is positive. And the third part is when the collector potential is negative. So, when collector potential equal to 0, there is some amount of photoelectric current flowing in the circuit. That means we can say if the collector is at zero potential, it will not attract the electrons or it will not pull the electrons, but still there is photoelectric current. That means these electrons are reaching the collector of their own. That means electron must have some initial kinetic energy. So we can say as there is photoelectric current at zero collector potential, electrons are emitted with some initial kinetic energies. Now the second observation, when the collector becomes positive with respect to cathode and the potential difference increases. Initially the photoelectric current increases and then gets saturated. So when the collector becomes positive with respect to cathode, it starts pulling these photoelectrons. So initially photoelectric current increases, but when all photoelectrons reach the anode or collector, then the photoelectric current becomes saturated. Now this is for Vc is positive. Now the third part, when collector is at negative potential with respect to cathode. Now at this case it will repel these electrons. So the photoelectric current decreases gradually. Now we can say as the photoelectric current decreases gradually, different electrons are emitted with different kinetic energies. As with negative collector potential, the photoelectric current decreases gradually. So we can say that different electrons have different amount of kinetic energy. But for a negative collector potential V0, the photoelectric current becomes zero. This V0 is called stopping potential. So what is stopping potential? The negative collector potential at which photoelectric current becomes zero is called stopping potential V0. So this V0 depends upon maximum kinetic energy of photoelectrons. So we can say maximum kinetic energy of photoelectrons, that is equal to half mv max square equal to eV0, because V0 is capable of stopping every emitted photoelectron. That's why the maximum kinetic energy of photoelectron is eV0. So what are the observations? When collector potential is zero, there is some photoelectric current. Hence, electrons are emitted with some initial kinetic energy. When collector potential becomes positive, the photoelectric current initially increases and then gets saturated. When collector becomes negative with respect to cathode, the photoelectric current gradually decreases. That means electrons are emitted with different kinetic energies. For a negative collector potential V0 called stopping potential, the photoelectric current becomes zero. So there is a maximum or upper limit to the kinetic energy of photoelectrons, which is given by K max equal to eV0. We'll go for effect of intensity of light. So now we draw a graph between intensity of light I and photoelectric current, keeping other parameters like collector potential and frequency of light constant. What will we get? We'll get a straight line. That means photoelectric current is directly proportional to intensity of light. That means photoelectric current increases with increase in intensity of light. Then now we draw this graph, the graph between collector potential and photoelectric current for different intensities of light, keeping its frequency constant. Now the graph will be like this. This is for intensity I1, this is for intensity I2. Here I2 is greater than I1, but frequency of light is constant. Now from the graph we can say the saturation photoelectric current increases with increasing intensity, but the stopping potential is independent of intensity of light. As maximum kinetic energy is the function of stopping potential, we can say the maximum kinetic energy of electrons and stopping potential are independent of intensity of light. Now, what is the effect of intensity? We can say saturation photoelectric current increases with increase in intensity of light, but stopping potential and maximum kinetic energy of photoelectrons is independent of intensity of light. Next we will go for effect of frequency. Now draw this collector potential versus photoelectric current graph for different frequencies of light, keeping intensity constant. Now the graph will something like this. Now this is the frequency F1, this is frequency F2. Now here F2 greater than F1, intensity is constant. So what we are observing here, saturation photoelectric current is independent of frequency. Frequency either increase or decrease, but saturation photoelectric current remains constant. So we can say saturation photoelectric current is independent of frequency of light, but stopping potential increases with increase in frequency. So we can say stopping potential and hence maximum kinetic energy of photoelectrons depend upon frequency of light. Photoelectric current is independent of frequency, but stopping potential and maximum kinetic energy of photoelectrons increases with increase in frequency of light.